My father deliberately sent me abroad to clear the way for another man, so that my fiancé would marry someone else. The rain in New York was cold as fine needles of ice, pricking the skin and piercing the heart alike. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Manhattan apartment. The whiskey in my glass had long gone cold. The amber liquid clung to the glass, sliding slowly down like a dying snake. The lights of New Jersey across the Hudson twisted and shattered in the rain, sinking into boundless darkness. My phone screen lit up abruptly. A message from an old classmate back home, someone I'd barely kept in touch with. Contained only one line, yet it struck like a bullet through my forced composure. Come home at once. Suyuro's wedding is near. Suyuru. The name felt like a long-forgotten chess piece, suddenly shoved back to the center of the board. My fiancé? No. She was nothing more than a mark casually drawn by the elders on the map of the Tong and Su family's business interests. Love? In families like ours, that sort of thing was far too luxurious, far too fragile. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, trying to smile, but all I tasted was bitterness. Fine. I'd go back and cut this tie completely, clean and simple. I, Tong Ming, the undisputed heir to the Tong Group. With a net worth of billions, surely I could find a more beautiful, more suitable woman if I wanted. I tilted my head back and let the cold liquid slide down my throat. The burn shot straight to my head, but in my stomach it settled like a heavy cold stone. The plane tore through the clouds and touched down in the familiar city. Warm, humid air washed over me, carrying the distinctive scent of southern greenery, whirled away from the cold steel forest of New York. I took a deep breath, as if trying to reclaim some lost sense of belonging. My driver, Old Chun, was already waiting at the VIP exit. When he took my luggage, his eyes darted away, refusing to meet mine. Old Chun, I said, loosening my tie as I settled into the back of the Rolls-Royce, is something going on at home? Nothing, young Master Tong. Old Chun started the car, his voice tight with tension. Just ... you must be tired from the trip. The awkwardness in his tone pricked at me like a tiny thorn. The car headed for Tong Group headquarters. The towering glass skyscraper reflected harsh, cold light in the sun, like a giant fortress carved from ice. But when I stepped into my familiar vice president's office on the top floor, a cold, unsettling feeling seized me at once. The layout was the same. The expensive mahogany desk, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the abstract painting I liked on the wall. Everything looked as it always had. But the air felt different. Was something missing, that intangible sense of absolute authority? Or had something been added? A strange scent of intrusion, of being watched. On instinct, I pulled open the drawer on my right, the one where I'd always kept core financial approval documents and personnel files. Empty. Only a thin layer of dust remained, mocking my return. I frowned and quickly unlocked my computer with my fingerprint. The desktop wallpaper had been changed. No longer the glittering night skyline of New York, but the bland, standard promotional image of the group building. My stomach dropped. I opened the internal permission management system and stared at the screen. Tong Ming, Vice President, Departments under Supervision. Sales Department active. Overseas Department active. Logistics Department active. Finance Department Management transferred AI Junshang. Human Resources Department Management transferred AI Junshang. Logistics Department? A wave of absurd, icy fury shot up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. I, Tong Ming, the acknowledged heir of the Tong Group, had been exiled to manage logistics? To oversee printer paper and office supplies? It was nothing short of a monstrous joke. The script I'd been rehearsing for over 20 years had its most crucial page brutally torn out during the 2 years. I'd been gone. Knock. 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 Heavy, deliberate raps on the door, with an unmistakable air of authority. Come in. My voice sounded steady enough, but only I knew the cold fire raging in my chest. The door opened. A man walked in. Tall and handsome, in a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, with a flawless, well-measured smile on his face, even a hint of ... familiarity. Vice President Tong, welcome home. His voice was warm and pleasant. He held out a hand. his manner as natural as greeting an old friend. I'm AI Junsheng, the newly appointed vice president. We'll be partners from now on. I look forward to working with you. I didn't take his hand right away. My gaze raked over his face like a scalpel, his perfectly styled hair, his exquisite cufflinks, and finally settled on his seemingly honest eyes. A flicker of something almost provocative passed through those eyes, gone so fast I might have imagined it. I Junsheng. The name stabbed into my memory like a poisoned needle. Vice President AI. I lifted my hand slowly and gave him a brief shake. His palm was dry and firm, with an unmistakable air of control. The pleasure is mine. I'm just surprised. I've only been gone 2 years, and the group's personnel changes have been so earth-shattering. I deliberately emphasized the last 2 words. His smile didn't falter. Anything, it grew warmer. He walked over and sat down across from my desk as naturally as if he owned the place. Chairman Tong has great foresight. All these adjustments are for the group's more efficient development. It's good for you to get familiar with the new business divisions now that you're back, young Master Tong. He paused, his tone laced with just the right amount of regret. By the way, I haven't had a chance to congratulate you yet. I hear your results in the North American market were outstanding. Like father, like son. But His tone shifted, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. I hope you can forgive us about Yuru. Matters of the heart can't be forced. When fate arrives, nothing can stand in its way. Su Yuru? I leaned back in my chair, my fingertips tapping idly on the smooth mahogany desk, making a soft, heavy sound. Oh, her. Getting married is good news. I'm happy for her. My tone was as flat as if I were commenting on the weather outside. You're very well informed, Vice President AI. I take it the groom is you? I lifted my eyes, my gaze sharp as a blade, piercing straight into him. Ai Junsheng's smile froze on his face for a fraction of a second, then deepened into the easy grin of a victor. Yes, Yuru and I. We're meant for each other. Actually, I should thank you. Young Master Tong being overseas gave us the chance to meet and fall in love. Fate really is a strange thing. He stood up and straightened his immaculate suit cuffs. I'll let you get back to work, young Master Tong. Oh, and one more thing. He reached the door, then turned back as if he'd just remembered, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. All the core documents from finance and HR have been moved to my office. If there's anything you need to know, young Master Tong, you can always come find me. The door clicked shut softly. I was alone in the office. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long, twisted shadows across the floor. The faint scent of cedar cologne Ai Junsheng had left behind lingered in the air, coiling like an invisible venomous snake. My fingers stilled their tapping and slowly curled into fists, my knuckles white with pressure. Rage and the humiliation of being played at surged wildly in my chest. What he'd taken wasn't just Su Yuru, the woman I didn't even care about. He'd taken my foundation at Tong Group. He'd taken my power. I picked up the internal phone on my desk, my fingers trembling slightly with tension, and dialed a number only I knew. Li Feng, head of the IT department. He'd worked for my father for years, but I'd secretly recruited him long before that. Li Feng, it's me. My voice was low and cold, every word sharp as ice. I need you to look into 2 things for me. Go ahead, young Master Tong. Li Feng's voice was equally low and cautious. First, dig up everything you can find on Ai Junsheng, from birth to present. Especially his mother, Lu Yan, leave no stone unturned. Second, pull all records of Su Yuru's whereabouts around Bin Hai Road on the night of September 15th last year. Specifically, whether she called the police or went to a hospital. My gaze fell again on the empty drawer, once filled with the symbols of my authority. Third, and most importantly, find out exactly who transferred my finance and HR management rights to Ai Junsheng, and when. Every step in the system, back in logs, down to the second. I want irrefutable proof. There was a brief silence on the line, then Li Feng's grave voice replied, Understood, young Master Tong. Give me a few days. In the days that followed, I became a silent shadow, patrolling my exiled territory without a sound. I sat through sales department analysis meetings, listening carefully to dry reports on channel expansion and competitor movements. I watched mountains of office supplies get counted and distributed in the logistics warehouse, like a dutiful storekeeper. I listened patiently to reports from overseas managers with all kinds of accents, chiming in occasionally with trivial, harmless questions. I acted like a diligent, harmless new manager, calmly accepting my father Tongganji's earnest guidance at senior management meetings about getting familiar with new business and starting from the ground up. At those meetings, Ai Junsheng sat to my father's right, the seat closest to the center of power, the seat that used to be mine. He reported on financial optimization plans and talent pipeline development, calm, confident, and eloquent. Occasionally his gaze would flick over to me, sitting on the sidelines, carrying an indescribable mix of emotion, scrutiny, deeply hidden wariness, and perhaps a faint trace of pity, like he was looking at a tiger with its teeth pulled out. I just listened, nodding occasionally, my face completely impassive, as if all the power that had been stripped away, and the position that had been usurped, had nothing to do with me at all. Yet under the calm surface undercurrents raged. Li Feng's messages came like deep-sea torpedoes, one after another, transmitted through encrypted channels late at night. Each faint glow of my phone screen lit up the ever-clearer map of the conspiracy taking shape in my mind like a flash of lightning. Young Master Tong, I found it. Around 9 p.m. on September 15th last year, Miss Sue's sports car broke down near Guanhai Cliff on Binhai Road. When she got out to check, 2 motorcyclists snatched her bag. She nearly fell off the cliff railing during the struggle. Coincidentally, Ai Junsheng drove by, stepped in bravely, and chased off the thugs. Miss Sue was shaken and sprained her ankle, so Ai Junsheng took her to the 2nd Municipal Hospital. It even made the local social news back then. With the headline "Hero Saves Beauty Late at Night on Binhai Road, Wealthy Heiress Falls for Her Savior." There was a hint of mockery in Li Feng's voice. The timing, location, people, and events, they fit together perfectly. Flawlessly. Young Master Tong, regarding the authority transfer. The system records are irrefutable. President Tongganji personally used his top-level access to operate the system backend at 3:27 p.m. on November 3rd, 1 week before you returned to the country. He directly and fully transferred your management authority over the Finance Department and Human Resources Department to Ai Junsheng. The operation logs are complete with his top-level digital signature. It's undeniable. Young Master Tong, there's a major discovery regarding Ai Junsheng's mother, Liu Yan. She was the star performer of the municipal song and dance troupe in her early years, then retired due to injury. She ran a small clothing store for a while and lived a fairly ordinary life. But here's the key. I found some old photos of her when she was young. Her facial features bear a striking resemblance to old photos of Mr. Tongganji in his youth. Li Feng's voice held a heavy note of disbelief. Additionally, I used special channels to look into the transaction records of several private bank accounts under Mr. Tongganji's name. For the past 5 years, a fixed large sum has been deposited every month into an account under the name Liu Yan, with the memo living expenses. The transfer dates are very consistent, always falling a few days around Ai Junsheng's birthday. The final batch of information was delivered to me on a stormy, rain-soaked midnight. There were no digital files, only a thick craft paper envelope sealed with wax. Li Feng delivered it in person, his face grim enough to drip water under the dim light. Young Master Tong, this is everything I could find on Ai Junsheng's birth certificate and household registration records. The original files were tampered with very professionally, done by someone with experience. But I tracked down a retired apprentice of the veteran household registration officer, who handled the case back then. It cost me a lot. Inside there's a photocopy of a deliberately concealed paternity test report and vague testimony from a woman who shared the same hospital room as Liu Yan when she gave birth back in her hometown county hospital. The implication is very strong. I waved Li Feng away. Outside the window lightning flashed, and its pale white glow briefly illuminated my bloodless face. I sat in the darkness with only the faint blue glow of my computer screen for light. I broke the wax seal on the envelope, my fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. and pulled out the yellowed, brittle pages inside. On the blurry photocopy of the paternity test, the key data fields had been smudged with ink, but the remaining fragments linked to Tongganji's name burned into my eyes like a red-hot branding iron. The testimony was even more straightforward. A former hospital roommate vaguely recalled that the impossibly beautiful new mother, Liu Yan, had held her newborn son and cried into the phone, "He doesn't want us anymore. Ganji, how could you be so cruel? You don't even want your own son? You promised you'd divorce your wife and marry me."
Boom.
A clap of thunder seemed to explode directly overhead. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows in a relentless staccato. Slowly I laid the papers out across the desk one by one, as if reviewing an elaborate scam 20-some years in the making. The father who was stern and authoritative at board meetings, who held me to high standards at home. The father who played the dutiful son before grandpa and the devoted husband before mother. It turned out he had another identity, the lover of another woman, and father to another son. All for that illegitimate son, Ai Junsheng. He had woven an enormous web sending me, the inconvenient legitimate son, away. Staging the hero saves beauty scam to take my fiancé, or rather an important bargaining chip for a political marriage. Stripping me of my core authority, and lifting that illegitimate son step by step into the position that should have belonged to me, Tong Ming. Ah! A devastating fury roared through my chest like molten lava, threatening to burst from my throat. I grabbed the heavy brass paperweight from the desk, the muscles in my arm bulging, veins standing out starkly, and raised it with all my strength, ready to hurl it at the cold glass curtain wall that reflected my twisted face. But at the peak of my swing I froze. The heavy paperweight hung suspended in midair, shaking violently. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ground together, and a low, wounded growl rumbled in my throat. No, I couldn't lose control here. This office, this entire corporation, there could be eyes and ears of father and Ai Junsheng everywhere. A drop of cold sweat slid down my taut temple. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, I set the paperweight back down on the desk with a dull thud. My chest heaved violently. I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe deeply, again and again. Cold air flooded my lungs, temporarily tamping down the all-consuming rage. When I opened my eyes again, the blazing fury within had settled, replaced by a bottomless, bone-deep cold. I would fight back. I had to. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed power, absolute, overwhelming power. My gaze settled on two places. The old Tong family mansion where Grandpa Tong Renyi lived, holding 50% of the group's shares, and wielding true power over life and death. And my mother, Qin Yi, who had been deceived for half her life, and held 20% of the shares in her own right. The old Tong mansion perched halfway up a mountain, its heavy red wooden gates shutting out the noise of the world. Deep courtyards and lush foliage steeped the grounds in the quiet weight of years. As I stepped into the familiar estate, I forced down the roiling malice in my chest, leaving only heavy exhaustion and a flicker of nervousness at seeing Grandpa. The housekeeper, Uncle Fu, came to greet me, his wrinkled face lighting up with genuine delight. "Young master is back. The old master is in the greenhouse out back. He was just talking about you." The greenhouse was warm as spring, filled with the scent of blooming orchids. Grandpa Tong Renyi sat in a rocking chair, a thin blanket draped over his knees, reading an ancient book by the daylight. Sunlight fell on his silver hair, making him look peaceful and serene. "Grandpa," I called out, my voice catching slightly, and sat down in the rattan chair beside him. Tong Renyi set down his book. He picked up on something wrong immediately. He took off his reading glasses. "You look terrible. Trouble at the company? Or your father? That Ai Junsheng?" He named the man directly. My heart sank. It seemed Grandpa was not unaware of father's moves. I took a deep breath, pulled out my tablet, and brought up the damning evidence, the blurry paternity Saint photocopy, the hospital roommate's testimony, the years of regular payments from father to Liu Yan. I silently handed it to him. "Grandpa, take a look at this." Tong Renyi took it with a confused frown, put his reading glasses back on, and leaned in close, reading every word carefully. The only sounds in the greenhouse were the soft fragrance of orchids and Grandpa's steadily growing heavier breathing. As time passed, I could clearly see the fingers holding the tablet begin to shake violently, the veins on the back of his hand throbbing with rage. All trace of kindness vanished from his face, replaced by stunned disbelief and a building storm of fury. Bastard! That ungrateful bastard! Tong Renyi slammed the tablet down hard on the low table with a loud crack. He shot to his feet, coughing violently from the sudden movement, his body swaying. I hurried to steady him. Grandpa, don't get so upset. Your health comes first. Health first? When he dragged the Tong family name, my good name, through the mud and trampled on it, did he ever think about my health? Tong Renyi shook all over, his aged voice hoarse as he pointed at the tablet. Lu Yan? That seductress. And this AI Jun Shang. That illegitimate bastard. He actually dared. Brought him into the group, made him vice president, stole your position, and married the Sioux girl? Tongganji arranged all of this, didn't he? Seeing Grandpa's face flushed with rage and his chest heaving violently, I felt a twinge of pity, but there was no turning back now. I helped Grandpa sit back down and handed him a glass of warm water, my voice low and steady. Father planned it all before I went abroad. Sent me away, arranged for AI Junshang to get close to Su Yuru, staged the Hero Saves Beauty act. When I came back, he transferred financial and personnel authority straight to AI Junshang. Right now, AI Junshang controls the purse strings, personnel, and core technology. I looked directly into Grandpa's angry, grieving eyes. Grandpa, this isn't just about me. Father put AI Junsheng in this position. What's next? Is the Tong Group going to change its name to AI? Or Lu? He wouldn't dare. Tong Renyi roared again, a fearsome light flashing in his cloudy old eyes, the full authority of a man who had run a vast empire for decades, fully ignited. Tong Group is the Tong family's legacy. He will not run wild for the sake of a bastard. And no bastard will ever get their hands on it. He panted heavily, his wrinkled hand gripping my arm tightly with surprising strength. Minger, tell me. What do you want to do? This old man will back you to the hilt, even if it kills me. Feeling Grandpa's unwavering resolve, half the heavy weight on my heart lifted. I clasped his aged hand back with my own. Grandpa, I need the shares in your hands, and Mother's support. Tong Renyi did not hesitate for a second. Good. Everything I have is yours. I'll have the lawyers draw up the papers. Right now. As for your mother, A flicker of grief and resolve crossed his eyes. She's been kept in the dark for half her life. It's time. She knew. The sins Tong Ganji has committed he will answer for himself. Convincing my mother, Qin Yi, was far harder than I'd imagined, and far more heartbreaking. Her apartment was simple and elegant. When she heard I was coming by unexpectedly, she was delighted and personally made the pastries I'd loved as a child. Mom. I watched her gentle, busy back, the fine lines at the corners of her eyes and the silver strands at her temples, and the words I'd prepared stuck in my throat, heavy as lead. What's wrong, Minger? Qin Yi walked over with the plate of pastries, quickly picking up on my heavy mood. Trouble. At work? Or is it about Yuru? I didn't answer. I just set that heavy tablet down in front of her again. On the screen were the same 3 damning pieces of evidence. The smile froze on Qin Yi's face. Confused, she picked up the tablet and looked down. Time seemed to stand still. I watched clearly as her fingers around the bone china plate tightened abruptly, her knuckles turning white in an instant. The pastries on the plate tumbled to the floor from her violent trembling, shattering silently. Qin Yi stopped breathing. She stared fixedly at the screen, not blinking. The tablet slipped from her limp hand and thudded onto the carpet. She lifted her head sharply to look at me. Those eyes that had always been soft and smiling held nothing but hollow, shattered, disbelieving despair. What is this? Her voice was thin, ragged with the edge of breakdown. Minger. Tell mommy what is this? Mom double quotes my heart. ached as I stepped forward to steady her. It's a lie, isn't it? Chinye slapped my hand away sharply, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch, tears spilling over. Someone's setting your father up.
Right.
Competitors? AI Junsheng? Tell me it's not true. She stared at me desperately, pleading in her eyes. I looked away from that heartbroken gaze, bent to pick up the tablet and quickly pulled up the last photo, a blue, wry but recognizable picture of a young Tong Ganji, holding a swaddled baby in front of a shabby photo studio. The date in the bottom right corner matched the year AI Junsheng was born. Mom, my voice was hoarse, AI Junsheng is father's biological son. He had him with that woman, Liu Yan. It's been over 20 years. Boom. Chinye's world collapsed. She stumbled backwards, slamming into the antique shelf, and a blue and white porcelain vase shattered with a loud crash. As if jolted awake by the sound or utterly broken by it, she slid down the wall and collapsed onto the floor amid the shards of porcelain. She buried her face in her hands and broke into heart-wrenching sobs. It was not mere grief. It was the desperate wail of a woman whose entire faith had been destroyed. Mom, watch the shards! I rushed over, ignoring the sharp edges of the broken porcelain, and lifted her up, holding her tight in my arms. I could feel her body shaking violently, uncontrollably, and her hot tears soaked through the front of my shirt in an instant. Why? Why, Minger? Chinye pressed her face to my chest, her voice broken. How could he do this to me, to the Tong family, to you, Mom, it's all over now. My voice was low and firm as I held her tighter. Now we're going to take back everything that belongs to us. Everything of the Tong family will not be tarnished by that illegitimate son and his mother. Grandpa's already on our side. Grandpa. Chinyi lifted her tear-streaked face, a faint spark of light flickering in her eyes. Yes, I nodded firmly. Mom, I need you. At the board meeting tomorrow, I need the 20% of shares in your name. Will you stand with me and Grandpa and remove Tongganji from a position he never deserved? Chinyi stopped crying. She leaned against me, her body still trembling, but those tear-washed eyes slowly ignited with a cold, unfamiliar fire. Hatred and clarity. She looked at my young but weathered face, at the pain and resolve in my eyes that mirrored her own. Slowly she nodded. The gesture was slight, but it carried the weight of a mountain. Good. Her voice was hoarse but sharp, cold with the resolve to burn everything down. I'll help you. Everything Tongganji owes me owes you, owes the Tong family. It's time he paid it back. Tong Group headquarters, top floor boardroom. The huge circular rosewood conference table gleamed, and the air hung heavy as lead. President Tongganji sat at the head, his face calm and authoritative, as he listened to AI Junsheng deliver a confident, fluent report on R&D investment. Ai Junsheng carried himself like the new core of the company. His gaze occasionally drifted to the empty seat across from mine. I'd deliberately arrived late and held a hint of smug satisfaction. Just then, the heavy boardroom doors slid silently open. Every eye in the room snapped toward the entrance. I walked in, dressed in an inky black peaked lapel suit, as if attending a coronation. My steps were steady, my gaze fixed straight ahead as I walked directly to my vice president's seat. My very presence was a boulder thrown into the room, shattering the flow of the meeting instantly. AI Junsheng's report cut off abruptly. Tongganji frowned, his sharp gaze sweeping toward me with a warning. An even bigger shock followed right after. Qin Yi appeared in the doorway. She wore a custom royal blue velvet suit she hadn't put on in decades, her hair coiled perfectly in a bun. Light makeup could not hide her haggardness, and cold ash burned in the depths of her eyes. Her appearance was like a bomb dropped into the room, the wife of the Tong family who had never set foot in a board meeting in 20 years. Her icy gaze swept the room, then settled on Tong Ganji at the head of the table. Indifferent, dead calm. She ignored every stunned face and walked step by step on clicking heels to the reserved seat beside me. An even louder collective gasp rippled through the room. Old Master Tong Reni appeared in the doorway, supported by Uncle Fu. The legendary founder and chairman of the board had arrived in person. CH Chairman. The veteran directors shot to their feet in shock. Tong Renyi paid them no mind. Leaning on his red sandalwood cane, he walked forward with heavy, weighty steps. His cloudy but sharp gaze fixed on Tong Ganji like a hawk, disappointment, grief and towering fury all at once. He sat down directly in the head seat, the seat of the chairman's authority. Dead silence fell. The air seemed to solidify. Tong Ganji's face turned from ashen to livid, his fists clenched tight. The smile vanished from Ai Junsheng's face, leaving only shock and panic. I stood up. My gaze swept calmly over the room. Directors, colleagues. Before this meeting continues, I, Tong Ming, on behalf of my mother Ms. Qin Yi and Chairman Tong Renyi, formally propose a motion, in light of President Tong Ganji's serious violations of corporate governance principles, harm to shareholders, our interests, and damage to the company's stability and reputation during his tenure. We move to immediately remove Tong Ganji from his position as group president. An uproar exploded across the boardroom. An earth-shattering coup. Tong Ming, how dare you? Tong Ganji slammed his fist on the table and stood, his face dark with rage, pointing at me and shouting, "What right do you have? Who gave you the nerve?" He turned to Qin Yi and Tong Renyi. "Father Xiao Yi, are you both going along with this nonsense?" Qin Yi lifted her head slowly. Her face was expressionless, like a mask of ice. Slowly she raised her right hand to the ring finger of her left hand to the huge diamond ring she'd worn for over 20 years. A symbol of half a lifetime of marriage and deceit. Her slender, steady fingers pulled it off in one sharp motion. The ring slipped free. Without a second glance, she lifted her arm and hurled it toward the center of the conference table. Clink-clatter. The diamond ring struck the rosewood table with a sharp, piercing sound, bouncing and rolling to a stop in front of Tong Ganji, its cold light glinting mockingly. That single sound silenced every other noise in the room. Dead quiet. Qin Yi's voice cut through the silence, not loud but final, cold and unyielding. Tong Ganji, the 20-year performance is over. Her gaze pierced him like shards of ice. Your show is done. Tong Ganji looked as if he'd been struck. His face drained of color, his lips trembling, unable to speak a single word. It was the first time he'd seen such searing hatred. In his wife's eyes, Tong Renyi's aged but booming voice rang out. The motion is now put to a vote. All in favor of removing Tong Ganji as president, raise your hand. The moment he finished speaking, Qin Yi was the first to raise her hand, her arms straight and unflinching. Next my hand shot up high. Then came Tong Renyi's hand, spotted with age spots and steady as a rock. 3 hands, 70%. Absolute controlling state grandpa's 50%. Plus mother's 20%. 3 unsheathed swords hanging over the room. Absolute overwhelming power. After a brief silence, the dominoes began to fall. Several directors I'd contacted in secret, or who feared the old man's authority, raised their hands one after another. Soon more than half were in favor. The outcome was sealed. No. This can't be happening. Ai Junsheng shrieked, all color draining from his face, wild with terror. You can't do this, Dad. Dad, say something. He looked to Tong Ganji for help. Tong Ganji looked 10 years older in an instant. He swayed, then collapsed back into his chair, his face ashen. Despair washed over him. The motion passes. Tong Renyi's voice was the final verdict. Effective immediately, Tong Ganji is removed from his position as group president. I stood calmly, meeting my father's despairing gaze and Ai Junsheng's venomous one. Qin Yi's hoarse but clear voice rang out. I, Qin Yi, as a shareholder of the group, hereby announce that I will unconditionally give my 20% stake in Tong Group to my son, Tong Ming. Another bombshell dropped. Tong Renyi spoke right after, eliminating the last shred of uncertainty. I, Tong Renyi, as chairman and largest shareholder of the group, hereby announce that I will also unconditionally gift my 50% stake in Tong Group to my grandson, Tong Ming, effective immediately. The dust settled. Tong Ming, with 70% controlling interest, was the new master of Tong Group, and its new chairman. No, I won't accept this. Ai Junsheng completely broke down and lunged at Tong Ming like a trapped beast, only to be held back firmly by security. He struggled and roared, "Tong Ming, what gives you the right? Just because your last name is Tong. I have Tong family blood too. You despicable coward." I watched coldly as the raving Ai Junsheng was held back by security. I adjusted the cuffs of my suit, elegant and icy. I walked slowly toward him, close enough to feel his angry huffs on my face. "What gives me the right?" My voice was low, but clear enough for him and everyone else in the room to hear. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, zoomed in on an image, and shoved it right in front of his face. It was a clear scanned copy of a paternity test report. In the conclusion section, the bold red words "paternity excluded" blared out like a warning. "This right here," my voice cut like a Siberian wind. "A fake paternity test you and your mother Lu Yan forged to fool Tong Ganji. Did you really think this scam would let you steal the Tong family's legacy?" A cold, cruel smile tugged at my lips as I watched Ai Junsheng's face drain of all color, as pale as a ghost. "Oh, and one more thing, ... I swiped lightly with my finger to the next image, blurry. Security footage, screenshots, call logs, and a recording of Ai Junsheng contacting the motorcycle gang. ... Yeah, Guanhai Cliff. Just scare her. I'll show up just in time. ... Evidence of your marriage fraud. Suyuru was never anything more than a stepping stone for you, your mother, and Tong Ganji." I deliberately emphasized my father's name, glancing over at his crumpled form. "A way to win the Su family's support and cling to the Tong family's coattails."
Boom.
Ai Junsheng's mind went completely blank. He went limp and was dragged away by security, his desperate screams echoing down the hallway before fading into silence. Dead silence fell over the room. I didn't look in that direction again. I turned to Tong Ganji, whose face was ashen. Tonggange's eyes were unfocused, his lips trembling, until finally he let out a pained, desperate sigh. Regret, pleading, resentment, utter defeat, all tangled in that one sound. "Father ... double quotes." My voice was flat, unreadable. "It's time you retired. As for your 20% stake," I swept my gaze over the silent, cowed crowd, my tone detached and all-controlling. "Who you give it to is your choice. But save your breath. Don't bother trying to fight a legal battle for Ai Junsheng. Forging a paternity test, defrauding massive amounts of property, orchestrating a fraudulent marriage. He and his mother Lu Yan are going to prison." Tong Ganji's body shook violently, and cloudy tears rolled down his face. He had lost. Completely. After the storm, I took full control with swift, decisive force. Ai Junsheng was cast out, and I didn't even bother to glance his way. Evidence of Yu Yan forging the paternity test and defrauding money was handed over to the police. Tong Ganji hid away in his suburban villa, too ashamed to show his face again. In the aftermath of the power shift, a figure I'd expected, yet found tiresome, appeared at the door of my chairman's office. Suyuru. She wore a simple, elegant off-white dress, no makeup on her face, her eyes red and swollen, shrouded in misery. She twisted the hem of her dress nervously, her gaze pleading and humiliated. "Tong Ming." Her voice was thick with a stuffy nose. "I know I have no right to ask, ... but please, spare Junsheng just this once. I know he was wrong. But ... She rested a hand on her flat stomach, her voice breaking. "I'm carrying his child. A child can't grow up without a father. Please, for the sake of us growing up together. ... I sat behind my desk, my back to the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sunlight outlining my sharp, cold silhouette. I watched her calmly, my gaze deep. That look sent a shiver down her spine. "The sake of growing up together?" I finally spoke, my tone flat and matter-of-fact. "Suyuru, what bond is there between us besides that forced engagement?" I leaned forward slightly, picked up a thin file folder, and slid it across the desk to the edge. "Read this. If you still want to beg for him after that, then we can talk about bonds." Hesitantly, Suyuru picked it up and flipped it open with trembling hands. Photos, intimate shots of Ai Junsheng with different women, spanning from before the hero saves beauty stunt all the way to after their marriage. Written records explicit chat logs, hotel check-in receipts. The last few pages held evidence of him contacting the motorcycle gang, and the call recording. Just scare her. I'll show up just in time.
Boom.
Suyuru's mind exploded. Every last shred of hope shattered. Her face went paper white. The folder clattered to the floor, papers spilling everywhere. She swayed unsteadily on her feet. No. It can't be. She mumbled dazedly, tears flooding down her face. It was no longer pleading now, it was overwhelming humiliation and rage. You already know the truth deep down. My voice remained calm and cold. Him approaching you, marrying you, it was all a scam from start to finish. He wanted to use the Su family and his so-called Tong family blood to climb the ladder. You're just a pawn, same as me. My gaze flicked to the hand protecting her stomach. As for the child, whether you keep the blood of a liar and a criminal, or cut your losses now, that's your choice. I stood up, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of her. No comfort, no sympathy, just a cold, towering presence. I pulled a business card from the inner pocket of my suit, the contact information for a top female divorce lawyer, and set it on the side table beside her. Get a good lawyer? My tone was distant, final. File for divorce on grounds of fraud. You're the daughter of the Su family. You don't have to let a liar ruin you. As for the child, my gaze lingered on her stomach for a brief, emotionless second. Do what you must. Suyuru lifted her head sharply. Tears still streaked her face, but the pleading and weakness in her eyes had been replaced by something equally cold, something sharp and fierce. It was the awakening rage of someone who had been thoroughly deceived, whose dignity had been trampled into the dirt. She didn't look at me again, nor at the evidence scattered on the floor. Her eyes locked onto that lawyer's business card. Then she bent down, not to pick up the scattered papers, but to grab that business card, precisely and with determined force. She clutched it tight in her hand, her knuckles white. She didn't say a word, didn't shed another tear. She just straightened her spine and turned, walking out of my office step by step with a proud, almost regal bearing I'd never seen from her before. Her high heels clicked against the carpet, a dull, steady sound. The door clicked softly shut. The huge office was left with only me, and the city outside the window that was finally completely mine. Sunlight flooded over me, but I felt no warmth at all. So this is what revenge tastes like. Cold, empty, and laced with a lingering, inescapable weariness. I picked up the document on the desk, the one that symbolized my 70% absolute controlling stake, and ran my fingertip over the two bold characters, Tong Ming. This was my name, and it would be the only name that mattered for the future of Tong Group. This story exposes the dark side of human nature mixed with family affection and fame. To support his illegitimate son, the protagonist's father deliberately sent the legitimate heir abroad, plotted to break off his engagement, and seized core corporate power. The hero gathered solid evidence, united his grandfather and mother who held major shares, regained control of the grow up at the board meeting, and exposed the illegitimate son's schemes of falsifying blood ties and fraudulent marriage. It tells us family bonds must not be twisted by selfish greed. Those who scheme against relatives to seize family property will suffer bitter consequences. Wealth and status should be earned through honest efforts. Anything obtained via lies and plots will collapse eventually. When treated unfairly, stay calm, gather proof, and safeguard legitimate rights through proper channels.